All right, nothing in the chat so far. Does that mean you can't hear me? Of course, if you're in the room, you can hear okay, but. All right, I just popped question in the chat there. I don't know what to do if they can't hear me. Everyone's still asleep. No response from the online folks.
I can hear you. There's no chat.
No chat.
No, I can't, there's no button for chat on my end.
Okay, that's weird. For me, it's on the top of the screen. Of course, depending on what computer or device you're on, it's going to look a little different. It looks just like a little speech bubble. And if you click it, it just says, show conversation. And when I type something, a little red number should pop up there.
Yeah, there's no button on my computer.
Oh, that's weird. What about everybody else?
I don't have a chat either.
Oh.
Me either.
Okay. So what Teams used to do is have everything on one screen, but now it has two windows. One is like the place where the calendar is and all that stuff. And then the other is like our class right now. So if you click on Teams and hold it, like if you look at the different windows, there should be one that's called Class 01 and one that's just called Microsoft Teams. So if you're in the wrong one, can you see the chat? Well, what I'm going to do is crank up my volume. If you have a question, you're going to have to just take yourself off mute and then just shout something out to me, and I'll get back to you then. Can you see the people that are online, my shared screen, my PowerPoint slide?
Yep.
Perfect. Good. So let's get started. This class is not going to be super long. It's going to be sort of introducing myself, introducing what we're going to be doing in this class. And what I've tried to do is keep it pretty similar to what you've been expecting since last semester, so nothing radically different. This slide, this PowerPoint, as well as this recording will be available on Acorn anytime. The syllabus is now posted online as well. And as things come to me, I'll be continually posting more things on Acorn. So my name is Dr. Matthew Lukeman, and I'm not too fussy about how people address me. I mean, some people really, it matters to them, whether they're called doctor, whatever, or professor, whatever, or anything like that. Especially for chem majors, I find like by the time fourth year comes around, most chem majors will just call me by my first name. So don't feel like you have to call me anything. Keep it clean, but other than that, we're good. My office is in the basement, Elliott 114. In addition to teaching this class, I'm also department head. And so what that means is, as chem majors, if there's anything that you need within the next year, because in a year's time, someone else will be taking over as head, I'm the person to come talk to. So if you have any questions about your program or anything like that, I'll be happy to help you out. My email there, you might be figuring out the, you could probably guess what my email would be if you know my name now, since these are all based on that. So my life, I am from Nova Scotia. I grew up in Antigonish, and I went to St. FX. I think if you're from the East Coast, you probably know where Antigonish is. So probably this isn't necessary, but if you're not, about a 2 hour and a half, 2 hour, 45-minute drive away. This is my family. Which one do you think is me? Left or right? 1, 2, 3, or 4? 3. I'm number 2. Number 2, the blue. Yeah, so I have 3 brothers, grew up in Antigonish, and number 4 there is my youngest brother. He's a prof at St. FX as well, so friendly rivalry right now. Went to St. FX for undergrad and did chemistry. This was my graduating class. There's like 1 or 2 people missing, but this was most of it. This was chem majors back 1999. That's when I finished. Oh, we're getting some feedback there. This one might be easier to guess which one is me because I look maybe more similar to this. One thing that's interesting is in chemistry, since at least I've been a chemistry student, the gender breakdown in chemistry seems to be like overwhelmingly female. And you can see that from my grad picture there as well. There was 5 of us out of about 25 that were male. After I finished St. FX, I had no idea what I wanted to do for a job, for a career, anything like that. And I really, I'd say, didn't have a very good understanding of what was available to me in terms of jobs and careers with a chemistry degree. So I decided to go to graduate school, which to me was sort of like hitting this snooze button. It's like I can put off making a decision now for a couple of years. And the nice thing about doing graduate school in chemistry in Canada is that you get paid to do it. So most places in Canada, you'll get paid at least about $18,000 a year. If you get scholarships and things like that, it can be higher than that. And that was enough for me to pay tuition, pay rent, feed myself. You know, I didn't have a glamorous life. I didn't own a car. I couldn't, you know, support a family or anything like that. But certainly it was better than undergrad, which is sort of the reverse, where you're paying to go. This was you could go. So for me, I treated it almost like a job, and it was at the University of Victoria, which is on the opposite end of Canada. And this is a picture of University of Victoria from a drone, and on the water as well. And you can see that the road is like a circle. They call that ring road. The whole university is in or just outside that big ring, that big circle. And I'd say like the size of UVic would be about similar to Dal. So about 18,000 students there. And when I was there, at least, there were rabbits everywhere. They were all over campus. And the building you see in the back there is the library. Just behind where I was standing was the chemistry building. I think they've started a program, though, to eliminate all of the rabbits, which is kind of sad. But necessary, they'd dig holes everywhere, and they'd like chew the underground wires. And they'd also draw predators to campus, like cougars and things like that. So I guess they didn't want the rabbits there anymore. They're all domestic. They weren't wild. Like somebody dropped their pets off, and then they multiplied as they do, and that's where they came from. So I finished in 2003 from my PhD. And after that, I did what's called a postdoctoral fellowship. A postdoctoral fellowship is basically like a research position in a lab somewhere. It could be a university, it could be government, it could be a business. And basically, you have a higher level of responsibility. You are directing people below you. You're conducting research all the time. It's sort of your only job requirement. And it's a typical thing that people do after a PhD before you get like a academic job or industry job or something like that. So it's kind of like a doctor. You know, you finish med school and you would do a residency. This was sort of a similar type of thing. And I did that at the University of Ottawa, which is a much less green campus than Acadia, much less green than University of Victoria as well, because it's right basically in downtown Ottawa. And even like looking at this picture, I feel like there's fewer trees than you can see in this artist's rendition. Very, very dense, and very, like I'd say the footprint of UVic is probably smaller. Sorry, University of Ottawa might be smaller than the footprint of Acadia. And far larger in terms of student population. So yeah, this is a picture of our group. I'm there at the very back, actually wearing something very similar to what I'm wearing now, but yeah. So I was in a large research group. There was probably about 25 people in the group, and wasn't there a very long time. I was there about a year and a half before I came to Acadia, and I started at Acadia in 2005. So back, other side of the province, and this was my first year with my first research group in the summer of 2006. So I find some of these pictures interesting to see the students that were basically in your shoes at that time, right? They were undergraduates in our chemistry program here at Acadia. On the far left is Misty, who's a teacher now at King's Edgehill. And Matt York in the middle works for Health Canada. Beside him, in the pink shirt, that's Melissa. She's a dentist now. Tammy in front she's an engineer. And Steph on the far right is a biochemist. So it's interesting to see that. So she's been working in industry. This is another picture. I think this is a jump of like 8 years, 2013. So on the far right, we have Alex, who's a doctor now. Hillary is working for a government lab, like not a government lab, a Nova Scotia Health Lab, doing blood samples and stuff like that in Halifax. And the other guy, he's working for BioVectra, which is a big company in, it's based out of Charlottetown, but it has a plant in Charlottetown and a plant in Windsor as well. So yeah, just that picture, by the way, was taken at a conference. So as undergrads in chemistry, one thing we like to do as much as possible when we don't have COVID is travel and take students with us to go to regional conferences. And our region would be the Atlantic region. So this particular trip was to Newfoundland. And so everybody went, and there's sort of the academic side where people give talks and you go attend the talks and things like that. And then there's the social side as well, and there's banquet and things like that. So something to keep your eyes and ears open for. This is just another event this was, I think, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And this is just a bunch of chemists who went to Halifax, where there was it was sort of like a competition, but it was very friendly competition. And it was, what was that thing called? Brain War, I guess, Ultimate Battle of the Brains. I guess you can see it on the back there. And it was held at Dalhousie, but it was sponsored by the Nova Scotia, what is it called? Science Museum, or I should know what that is, but it's in Halifax. The one on the far left, she did her undergrad degree here and did a master's degree here. So she was able to get both degrees done in 5 years, and she's now in law school at Dalhousie. Molly is the next one. She's at Dalhousie in pharmacy. Alex is the next one. He's in graduate school. And the next one, she's actually not a chemistry major. She's a biology major, but we like them too. So this is probably the most recent picture of my research group. This is from actually like last Christmas, when just before we could go places and not have to wear masks or worry about numbers or things like that. So maybe some of you might have met Tori. It's right beside me in this picture. She's still here. She's a 5th year student finishing up. She did her honors with me last year. And the other two, Jackie and Allie. Allie went to graduate school, and Jackie is doing occupational therapy at Dalhousie. So gives you a bit of an idea, at least, of some of the students who've come through our program and the kinds of places you can go, from, health professions is where a lot of students end up, or working directly in industry, like right after you graduate, you can go and get a job somewhere, or graduate school is another. I'd say about a quarter of our students end up going to graduate school to get a master's or a PhD. This is our first year class from last year. And this is, again, an event from around this time last year that we can't do right now because of COVID. But Smile, I don't think is happening this year. You must have heard of Smile. Not happening at all. So this was a Smile event, and chemistry every year does a table, and you can see the cauldron kind of thing in the middle. We're making liquid nitrogen ice cream. And I don't know if you recognize any of the people here. It kind of sucks with COVID because it's very difficult for you to get to know people who aren't right in your classes. And even then, you know, there's still barriers in your classes as well, but vaccine's coming and that will all go away hopefully soon. Okay, so this is a picture of me and my family. I've got 2 daughters and a wife. And yeah, that's who I am and how I got here and where I've come from. So in terms of the course, and you know, I'm looking forward to meeting everyone here over the semester, and not just people that are in person, but also people that are online. And I hope to really get to know you over the next 4 years as well. So okay. Please feel free at any time to reach out to me if you want to have a meeting on Teams or anything like that. I'm totally happy to. Just please drop me an email anytime you like. So something you're probably used to from last semester is we're going to be doing a lot of things on Acorn. Given that most of you are here for the 2nd semester, I think we do have 1 or 2 people though that are brand new to Acadia. If you are not used to Acorn, please go to this website, log in, check out what's available there. Make sure you can see our course because we will be using Acorn extensively. I'll be publishing all of our lectures. What I usually do with our lecture recordings, like this is being recorded right now, is I put it up on YouTube and then put a link on Acorn. And all the PowerPoint slides will go there. We'll have like quizzes and assignments on Acorn as well, like you're probably used to from last semester. And any kind of little random thing. And I've been on your Acorn site from last semester and I've checked that out. And I know Dr. Banks has all kinds of things that are on there. I don't know if I can promise that much, but definitely there'll be what you need on there. So make sure you get used to Acorn. Now this is the marking scheme, and I have changed the marking scheme a little bit from what you had last semester. And I want to hear what you think of this. So labs will be the same. Labs are 20%, and they were 20% last semester as well. I have assignments 10%. And rather than, so this course has 1 midterm and 2 quizzes. And you see what the quizzes are. I have week of February 7th and quiz 2, week of April 29th. So what this means is this quiz I will open you know, first thing on, say, February 7th. It will remain open all week, and then you can do the quiz at a time during that week that is convenient for you. And the quiz is worth 5%. It's not a huge amount, but it's sort of like I don't know, like a knowledge checkup kind of thing. And it's approximately 1/4 of the way through the course. Then we have our midterm, single midterm on March 3rd in class, so during our class time. And then quiz 2 comes later. This is an oral quiz for 5%, and I understand you guys have done oral quizzes already with Dr. Banks. And the oral quiz will take place the week after the midterm. So you see week of March 7th. March 3rd, where the midterm date is a Wednesday. So the week of 7th will be sometime the following week. And what I'll do is I'll have sign up slots and you can pick a slot and we can do the oral test then. And it will be basically covering the same material that will be on the midterm as well. Final exam, I have 40%. And if you add all these up together, you get to 105%. So what I'm going to do is at the end of the semester, labs will be 20% no matter what. But whichever one of your other marks is lowest, take 5% off of its contribution to your final mark. So that means one of your 2 quizzes could be completely erased. Okay, or your assignments, if you do well in everything but bomb your assignments, we can take that 10% down to 5%. or your final exam. If everything goes well until the final will drop down to then 35%. You get the idea. So those numbers are sort of the maximum possible. If anything's missing, then we can adjust as we go. This is the schedule. So I kind of put together just a calendar, and the 18th right here is where we are now. And all the green days are just ordinary normal classes like we're in right now. The red days are holidays where nobody has classes because yeah, holiday. And you can see on the right side, week 4 is the week of quiz 1. And you can see quiz 2 is week 11. So it's going to be posted early that week and due later in the week. And then you see the midterm date is the yellow one in the middle, which is the 3rd of March. So what I did is I know you guys, or most of you anyway, are also in Math 1023 and Physics 1023. And so what I've done is avoided those midterm weeks with the midterms for this course. So I can't promise you won't have some other class in addition to those required ones, but at least the ones that I know Chem majors are required to be taking, that should not conflict. So you can see the 19th and the 19th will be midterm days for Math 1023. The 24th and the 24th are the midterm dates for Physics 1023. And all of our tests are in different weeks than those. So hopefully you have a fairly spaced out calendar. It's a little bit weird. I mean, we are starting later than we ever start in January right now. And your break isn't much of a break. You get 2 days where you usually you get an entire week in February, but it is what it is. Last day of exams, I believe, is the 24th of April. So after classes end, there's 2 weeks of the exam period. Our exam for this course doesn't get scheduled until, I think it's the 12th of February. And that's when they post, because they wait to see where everyone kind of settles in terms of what they're registered in. Then they draw up a schedule to minimize conflicts for you folks. This is the marking scheme, and the marking scheme is new. And the reason I post this is because there's been a lot of movement in the last 2 or 3 years. I feel like the marking scheme at Acadia has been the same, certainly since I started, but I think probably for 50 years. And then all of a sudden, the last 2 or 3 years, people started looking into it deeper, and we've changed quite a few things. So one thing that we've changed, which none of you, I don't think, would have been around for the previous version, but it used to be that an A and an A plus was worth the same to your GPA. Both were 4.00. And so a perfect GPA, you just needed A's or A pluses. Now, if you have an A plus, before there was no bonus to getting an A plus. Now there is. So the scale goes now up to 4.3 or 4.33, I forget which. And if you get A pluses, they're now worth more than A's, which in my mind they should be. Second thing that has happened is we changed the percentage range for that applies to each grade. So it used to be to get an A plus, you needed a 94 or better. Now you need a 90 or better. And the reason this change came is because we realized we were like the only school in the Maritimes that required something higher than 90. So we're now in line with every other school, and we don't want to disadvantage our own students.
Was that like changed how recently? Because I know like for math, in the syllabus for math like last semester, they said it was like a 94 to 100. That was a base class. So maybe they just haven't changed it.
They might not have changed it in there. I've noticed, like when I was putting my syllabus together for this course, what I usually do is I take a previous syllabus and I start editing it. So yeah, they should, all your syllabuses by now should be using this grading scheme. I think though what happened is it was proposed, in order for something like this to be enacted at Acadia, it's got to go through our Senate, and that can sometimes be a slow process. It has gone through Senate and it has been approved, but whether that happened before September this year or not, I'm not 100% sure. But all of your courses from now forwards should definitely be using this scheme. And the reason I'm giving you this here is because I'm not going to give you any scores that are letters. Everything is going to be a percentage for you. So you can, in your mind at least, use this scheme, this grading scheme, to interpret your grade in terms of the letter or the GPA. It's kind of weird. I mean, everywhere I've ever been, the grades were always just percents. And I can understand a percent. But the GPA is still a little foreign to me, even though I've been here 15 years. Especially since different schools use different GPA scales. I think the 4.3 is now becoming most common, at least in the Maritime provinces. When I was at UVic, it was a 9-point scale. So but I think it was one of those ones, it was relatively easy to get to a 5, but it was very difficult at every point above that. Anyway, don't worry too much about it. We've got it under control. And I think the new system is much better for you, because I think it's going to, internally, I don't think it makes really any difference. Actually, it makes a little bit of a difference because we have GPA cutoffs for things like honors and things like that, and scholarships and so on. Now it's a little bit easier to hit those cutoffs because A pluses pull you up a little higher than they used to pull you up. But going outside from Acadia and applying to dentistry or whatever, your GPAs now will be more comparable to other schools. So it's to your benefit to be using this, I think. Textbook really is the same as last semester. I'm not getting you to buy anything new, certainly. The textbook actually is quite good. And I don't know how much any of you even use the textbook, but if you haven't, this is worth checking out. OpenStax Chemistry 2E is the title. We checked this out when it was in its first edition, and the first edition wasn't great, but now the second edition is much better. And so I recommend, if you're looking for a textbook resource, this is the way to go. And certainly, it's the best textbook for its price. The normal textbooks that we have been using in previous years have gotten extremely expensive. And what most textbook companies are doing now is you buy the textbook and it comes bundled with an online homework system. And really the sales has shifted from how good the book is to how good the online homework system is. And they're constantly pushing all these new tools and new things for the online homework because that's really their product now. But the packages have gone well over $200. I've seen them up to $280. And the system we have is, I'd say, almost every bit as good, and it's free. So I think hopefully you enjoy that and agree. Speaking of which, the assignments will be very similar to the first semester assignments. They'll be on Acorn. I have the dates and times the same as first semester, so it shouldn't be much of a change there. The deadlines are automatically enforced by the computer system, so there won't be exceptions to that. But the leniency will come on the last point there. It says there should be around 12 assignments. There's 12 weeks, but I don't think we're going to have an assignment this week. So maybe there's only going to be 11. But I will drop 2. Whatever number we end up doing, I'll drop the worst 2. And so if that deadline, if something comes up and you can't hit that deadline, you don't submit one assignment, that will just be removed anyway. So that's how I'm going to be flexible when it comes to that. My plan is to have, I'm not sure exactly how Dr. Banks had it set up for you, but each question, if you get it wrong, you can try again. And there's a 10% deduction on that one question if you answer it wrong for each time. So you get basically 10 chances before it's worth nothing. And hopefully that's not like a giant penalty, right? Because one question, 10% of that one question, it's such a small piece. And really, the only reason I have a deduction at all is because if you don't, people will just guess if it's anything besides a numerical answer. Yeah, don't wait to the last minute because the computer system is a a ruthless master, and it doesn't care if your power went out. So yeah, good idea to get started on these early. I have some slides that were sent to me from Ashley regarding the lab, and she runs all of the labs, as you might have come to know, and labs are going to be beginning on January 25th. You should all be enrolled in a laboratory section as well, unless somehow you have credit for the labs. If you think you do have credit for the labs from a previous attempt or transferred from a different university or something like that, you have to get in touch with Ashley, and she will determine beforehand, which is important, whether that transfer of credit is still good. The section for this class, the 1120 section, is on Thursdays. Everybody here in that section? Yeah, okay. I think what we do is we pre-register, but there is some flexibility there as well in terms of sometimes we can accommodate you in other sections, because I think the labs are the same for your section versus the general section. But yeah, just to know, there has been some changes to how Ashley's been doing the labs. It used to be, I believe, you could kind of do them anytime you wanted. Is that right? I think she's changed that so that you have to do it actually during your time slot. And I think the reason is it's in terms of TA support and her instructor support, trying to manage everybody when it's just scattered whenever was getting too difficult. And if everybody's there when the TAs are present and when she's present, it's much cleaner delivery. So I think that's what she's moving towards. To attend the lab, you have to go to the Chem 1020 Labs team, which should automatically be one of your teams that you're registered in. I think it was December 17th. If you were registered in this course on that date, which I think everybody was, maybe not everybody, then you should automatically be in that team. And maybe if you're after, it would be as well. Yeah, there's a link below as well. You can see that there. I mean, obviously, you don't have to write that down, but this will be posted. It's already posted on both the syllabus and the PowerPoint that's been posted as well. So check that out. Although Acorn was down this morning, so you can't check it out immediately, but sometime whenever that comes back up. Now is a great time for Acorn to go down. Were any of you affected by when Acorn went down during an exam? Was that physics? So that was, I'm sure that was a little bit.
I felt bad for Rob. He was emailing us like frantically, like trying to figure it out.
Peter Williams? Yeah. Hopefully that all turned out okay for everybody. I had an exam that same day, but it wasn't until the evening. So it was back up and running by then. The only issue was that some students were complaining that they couldn't access any of the resources they were intending to study from for like 3 hours, but it wasn't a big deal. Before your lab on January 25th, this is funny for me because every other year it's the same slide. It's like, make sure you have your goggles, make sure you have your lab notebook, make sure, and all the stuff that you need to go to a physical lab. And it really sucks as a chemistry major, I think, not to be in a physical lab. But I'd say next year for sure, unless something unexpected happens, everything should be back to normal. And I'd say your second year is your most critical year anyway for labs, because it's your foundational labs in all of your kind of key core courses. If you are listening to me right now, you are probably in a time zone that makes attending the labs live feasible. But if not, or if you're seeing this on a recording, please contact Ashley, and I think she's willing to work something out on a one-off basis. You can see the previous lab credit point there, and keep checking your email. And that doesn't go just for labs, that goes for this course as well. I'll be emailing you periodically throughout the semester. I'll be reminding you of major dates. I'll be providing information about midterms, things like that. And I'll be sending it out via Acorn, and Acorn by default, I believe, sends it out to your Acadia email addresses. There might be a way to add email addresses so Acorn will maybe send you other things, but I don't know anything about that. So please continue to check your Acadia email, and if you see something from me or Ashley, it's probably important. I'm actually not too bad to over email people, and so yeah, I generally won't email you unless I feel it's, actually I'm not going to say that. I might email you unimportant things too. I won't fill your inboxes though with like puns and memes, where there's a lot of people, because Acadia has like an Acadia-wide, it's called a, what is it, Acadia FYI listserv that all staff and faculty are a part of. And it's a constant stream of people selling things and memes and jokes and yeah. Which is fun sometimes, but sometimes not. Topics that we're going to be covering, and I have this like starting at Unit 9 because it's always been Unit 9. I don't know. I know what you covered last semester, but I don't know how the units were numbered last semester. So I guess you can call the first one Unit 1. But this is what we're going to be covering in this term, and it's going to be largely, you know, at the beginning, it's going to be largely what I would call physical chemistry. In fact, most of your first year is physical chemistry, which I'm an organic chemist. I'm actually a physical organic chemist. So it's sort of a mix of chemistry, physical chemistry and organic chemistry. But it's not my, I would say, most favorite part. And what you'll find is when you take chemistry courses next year and in years past, some of these courses will be very different from your first year experience. So for example, Organic Chemistry 1 will use a lot from the unit you did on Lewis structures, on molecular shapes, on, this is all last semester, right? Intermolecular forces maybe, but it has like no math in it. So chemistry is a nice subject because if you really love math and quantitative thinking and stuff like that, there's an area for you, right? So physical chemistry is more trying to understand the physical nature, mathematical calculations of chemical systems. There's analytical chemistry, which you take in second year, which is how to measure amounts of things, whether it's in a pill or in a lake or whatever, in the atmosphere, how to measure the amounts of chemicals. Organic is basically the chemistry of carbon compounds, and it goes hand in hand with biochemistry, which is, you know, the chemistry of living systems and molecular components of cells and things like that. And the other one is inorganic chemistry, and inorganic chemistry is basically the chemistry of every other element besides carbon, and some would argue including carbon as well, but less specialized. So we're going to do a chapter in kinetics, and this is on how to basically follow the rates of chemical reactions and what you can learn from the rate of a reaction. Then we have 2 units on thermochemistry, which I have Thermo 1 and Thermo 2. One is thermochemistry, the second one is what we might call thermodynamics, and it brings in concepts of entropy and Gibbs energy. Have you guys covered in high school entropy and Gibbs energy? I find this question usually is about 50-50, depending on what high school you might have gone to. Then there's a chapter on equilibrium, which I think you touched on in first semester with acid-base. Then electrochemistry, and then phase equilibrium and solution. So units 10 all the way down to 14 are all kind of thematically linked. Okay, they're all based on Gibbs energy, and that idea comes up again and again. The last unit, Intro to Organic Chemistry, there was a unit 15 that I think I'm going to delete, which was solids. And I think you may have covered some solids last semester, but I decided to remove that chapter and instead do an Intro to Organic Chemistry. So hopefully you guys are okay with that. It's kind of interesting. Like, I'd say this course really focuses on the 2 most important questions in chemistry, which is, will a reaction happen? And if it does, how fast will it happen? And that's basically the first 3 units here, answering those 2 questions. All right, that's it for today's class. I do want to mention on Wednesday's class, what we're going to be having is the co-op coordinator is going to be coming in, giving a presentation on co-op specific to chemistry, because co-op has become increasingly a choice of interest, maybe I'll say, for chemists. I think roughly half of our chem majors are doing co-op. I think co-op is especially good if you are interested in working directly after your degree in industry in particular, or in the government labs, or things like that. I think it's a good idea. I mean, practically it's a good idea because you make money when you do it. I think the average pay for a chemistry co-op student is around $10,000 per work term. So it's nice to help pay the bills. But more than that, I think it helps give you exposure to the sorts of jobs that are out there for chemists. You'll see professionals working in different environments, and it might help you if you're not 100% sure what it is that you want to do for a career after you graduate. It might help you narrow that down a little bit. And on top of that, there's a lot of sort of mentoring and development of things like interview skills and how to put a professional resume together and things like this, which are also valuable, I think, for everybody here. So what's going to happen on Wednesday is the co-op coordinator is going to give a short talk, and there's going to be 2 chemistry majors in upper years who've recently completed work terms in different places will be coming to the class and giving you a short presentation. I think they're 15 minutes each on what they did, what they learned, and would they do it again, I guess is it. So our actual chemistry doesn't really get started until Friday. And that's it. Does anyone have any questions? Online folks, please jump out if you have any questions for me. No, okay. If a question comes to you after this class, please send me an email. And what I'm going to do now is just stop the recording,